This is Shane from Shane's Books and Review. Today we're going to be talking about Altered Carbon, the differences in between the book and the series on Netflix. The book was wrote by Richard K. Morgan, and as far as sci-fi goes, it really hits all the check marks. It's really an interesting read, and it might be that it really appeals to me because of the technical things that are in it, without being brand locked or dated, which is always a plus to me. Now, the differences in between the series on Netflix and the book itself, there's a few, and they're big ones. You've got Ava Elliot, which in the series is re-embodied in a male. And kudos to the actor because he did a really, really good job. But in the book, Ava was re-sleeved into another female. And there was an interesting point that was made by her whenever she was talking to Takashi at one point, being that even though she was the one that initiated sleeping with her husband that evening that she was brought out of storage, she felt as if he had cheated on her. And the book kind of addresses that as well, saying that there was volumes of things wrote on this and how to cope, etc., in being in a new and different body. So kudos on that afterthought that was put in there. Other big differences was the Elliots, their daughter, Lily. She played a big part in the series, but not so much in the actual book. She is mentioned. She is a character that is important in the book, but not for the same reasons. Another big difference was Poe in the hotel. In the series, he's more of a comical relief device, I would say. In the book, it was more of a computer. It was a lot more dry, and in fact, it hadn't even had its comedy routines installed, which Takashi did decline having installed. Major points in the book versus major points in this series, they're really close, and I think that they adapted it to TV very, very well. And it really doesn't distract or detract from the book if you read it. In fact, if you've only seen the series, I would suggest you go and check out the book because it is quite phenomenally good. And if you like the series, you're definitely going to like the book because there's a lot more detail, as always, because, I mean, let's face it, it's paper or electronic paper or even audiobook these days. And there's so much more that an author can do because he doesn't have the time constraints, or she doesn't have the time constraints that you do in TV media and in movies. What kind of a read is this? Is it something that you should just tackle on the weekends or throughout the week? Is it an afternoon read or whatever? I think that once you pick it up, if you're into tech and you're into sci-fi that's just a little bit outside of what you've read before, or if you're looking for a new experience, this is definitely a really good book because it deals with more than just good versus evil, man versus nature, whatever the usual story arcs are. You've got some really complex morality type issues and some really complex psychological type issues that arise because of the new ability that humans have of being stored in a chip, no less, that's in the neck, being that they can go to jail for hundreds of years and then their sentence is good, or they can go into other people's bodies and live that way, or they can just be in the virtual, either which way. So it makes for some very interesting sidestepping throughout, and that was part of the thing that was so enjoyable. Was it wasn't like a mixture of you've got this virtual world and you got the real world and the two of them are interlaced. That's not the way this book was wrote at all. Instead, the virtual is its own thing, and reality is its own thing, and the perceptions of reality can change depending upon what people are doing to each other, which is unique. Now, the main crux in the book versus the series are pretty much the same. That part of the story pretty well stayed intact, with a couple of key differences at the end. They had to work around what they had done to make what they felt to be more interesting in the series to keep you hooked. and versus the actual literature that was wrote. That's why there was a difference on the ending, but it all kind of came out the same in between the series and in the book, which was kind of cool to see how they were able to bring things back in the way they should have been to begin with. And also, they did a really good job of portraying a particular scene towards the end of the book in the series. So, again, well done, Netflix. It was a delight. It was a delight to read, and the reason why is because it wasn't so much a typical whodunit plus sci-fi. It was really an enriched world that was created. I did not have a problem with imagery while I was reading. I did not have a problem associating what I had saw in the series or particular characters in the series to particular characters in the book as I was reading either, because they had different feels. Now, that's probably because I read the book a long time ago and I had already associated my own voice to the book and different characters. Whenever it all shakes down, you've got a couple of main things that are important to know about the book and might get you a little tripped up. Probably not. And it has to do with that little storage thing in the neck. Somebody can go on what they call the stack, which is pretty much just being stored until another body is available. You've got meths, which meths is a shortened term for Methuselah, and how long that individual lived in the Bible. Now, there was a couple of overtones, undertones of religion in the book, but they were there for a reason. It had to do actually with a loophole, and if it wasn't for one religion being in the way that it is, then the story would have unraveled. And that was something that these myths were using, trying to circumvent things and make their own rules and just live by their own rules. And who cares about the morality, because we're so powerful. And ultimately the story has to come down with people doing the right thing and things being solved. Yes, as a generality, but I want you to read the book and I want you to tell me about it down there. If you think it was good, if you think it was bad, I'd value your opinion. Some of the things that did stick with me the most, though, was the imagery or the things that I came up with whenever things were being described, such as Bancroft's island that's floating in the sky. And he's talking about a tree that an architect wanted to remove because it was in the way. And he was like, no, and fired the architect, but it was the descriptions of things were just vague enough that I was able to come up with some really fantastical type things in my head while I was reading. So that was a nice point. Was even though there was a lot of description, it wasn't something that would hinder or turn your brain off. It's just enough to get you interested and let you do your own thing. And the dialogue in the book, it actually felt natural. Sometimes authors have issues with dialogue. There were some particular points where there was a lot of back and forth in between different characters and internalization of Takashi. And there was just such a natural flow there. I really appreciated it. Speaking of which, the next book that I'm going to do is Broken Angels, which I think is book number 2. And then following that, we'll do Woken Furies. So we're going to go through all 3 of the books. So we'll go all the way through the series. And if you like, pick up the book and read it, and if you beat me to finishing it, awesome. If you don't, cool. But again, tell me what you think about it, and we'll see if our opinions match up or not. Now that the review is over, I gotta get down that road. But I hope that you guys have been safe. I hope that you find a good book to read. If you do find a good book to read, make sure you tell me about it down there in the description, and I will read it along with you guys. If you happen to be new here, please hit that subscribe button. There's a little bell. That way, every time we upload a video, you'll know about it. Also, sharing is caring. Make sure that you click that like, and if you know of anybody that might like these, make sure you share it to them. Beyond that, this is Shane with Shane's Books and Review, and I hope that you have a wonderful read. We'll see you later.